Hey YouTube, tomorrow we have a Yamask research day, and a lot of these times people are just shiny hunting, but there are actually the Pokemon itself, and there are actually some Pokemon in the wild that are pretty useful for GBL. So what we're going to do is just go over the event details and look at this from the GBL perspective as we do on the channel. So it is a uh, research day, Saturday, October 19th from 2 till 5. Um, event research will do Yamask and the Galarian version, and you'll have a chance to increase chance of encountering a shiny one. The shiny chances with these research days are usually higher than the other days. So if you are shiny hunting, this is probably wanting one of these two Pokemon. This is probably a good time to get them. There are also wild Pokemon to encounter. So Cubone, Zigzagoon, Galarian Zigzagoon, Duskull, and Shieldon. Um, Paid research, avatar items in itself, nothing that big, nothing that big in the event details like some of the other event details. But again, there's some good Pokemon here for GBL. So what we're gonna do is look at all of them except Duskull, because Duskull is somewhat useless. Um, and then Lanoon has some play, but probably not much. Okay, let's start with the Yamasks. So Yamask evolve into cofagrigus and runerigus. So in the Great Read, cofagrigus is kind of an interesting one. It kind of we're gonna do like a history of with all these Pokemon in this thing because you guys asked for a history of videos and we haven't done that in a while. So we're gonna do a history of all these Pokemon and their strengths in the GBL. Cofagrigus kind of jumped onto the scene as one of the best ghost Pokemon. It had so much going for it. It had your stat product, low rush attack, super high defense. Stamina's kind of low, but 2000 overall. You had one of the best fast moves in the game, Shadow Claw, right? High energy per damage and energy per turn and a decent amount of damage per turn. And Shadow Ball, same type attack bonus, 55 for 120 for a nuke. You had two problems always. The biggest one was your second move. Now, if this thing had any other move besides these three, I think it would jump in the rankings like 70. So everyone says, what Pokemon is one move away from being like meta? Cofagrigus. And the reason it gets walled here is you have, at best, um, everything's going to be non-stab because it's only a ghost, right? And you don't want to run double ghost move because then you're just extremely limited. At least Skips gives you a little bit more coverage. But the coverage you get with these moves is not good, and you can still wall yourself against certain Pokemon. For example, the recommended moveset was always, if you just look at straight damage per energy uh, and the damage and the all that, Dark Pulse is the move. 50 for 80 for 1.6 versus 55 for 75, 1.36. So obviously Dark Pulse is the move you want to go with as your second move. First of all, 50 for 80 non-stab, 1.6 for 50 energy is not a good move for starters. So anytime you can throw the Shadow Ball, you throw the Shadow Ball. The problem is when you ran Dark Pulse Shadow Ball, you get walled by two Pokemon. No, so I was gonna say two typings, but it's really one typing that just walls everything, and that's Dark. So when you ran it up against, at the time, Umbreon, which was ever at the time, every move was resisted. Mandibuzz is out there, and then Zigzagoon at the time was out there a lot too, and that will triple resist the Shadow Ball because it double resists the Ghost on the normal, and then single resist the Ghost on the Dark. So it's triple resisted Shadow Balls, or resisted non-stat Dark Pulses. So with it, you had to kind of like use it as the lead and then have two Pokemon in the back to cover. So if you get, I'm not even saying it needs like a fairy move, but if you have a move and then Psychic, same thing. Psychic is resisted by Dark as well. So you had just three moves that are totally resisted by Dark. So if you get a new move that completely, not that it even needs to hit super effective against Dark, that at least is neutral against Dark, this Pokemon I think becomes super, super strong. Because again, has a stat product, has Shadow Claw, has Shadow Ball, only has two weaknesses, Dark and Ghost. And if it's a Ghost, you can hit super effective against them as well. And then four resistances, double resist normal, double resist fighting, single poison, and single bug. So again, I really think this Pokemon is just like one like decent non-dark move resisted away uh, from being like top meta. So if you don't have one yet, it's still pretty good. Definitely better in like limited cups, but it's still a very, very good Pokemon. However, thanks to the buff, runerigus is now a higher ranked Pokemon. So runerigus um, kind of burst on the scene for the same reason. Stat product similar-ish, or the exact same. I think slightly worse. Um, yeah, a little higher attack, lower defense. Still overall good stat product. Has the Shadow Claw as well. Has the Shadow Ball as well. It had two sort of bad things going for it. The first was that it was half ground, and adding that ground added three weakness, and one of them being water. So again, you add a grass and ice as well, but there wasn't a ton of grass and ice in the meta at the time. But there was a lot of water, right? It was a very water dominated meta. So adding on that water weakness while picking up like some of these other, like picking up an electric resistance and a rock resistance. It's not like that was bad, but it just did not offset all the weaknesses that you picked up. The second thing is you ran Shadow Ball and Sand Tomb. Now, Sand Tomb is a move that you're just using to lower your opponent's defense because it's only 30 damage. So it's a 40 energy move, but like literally tickles them. But it lowers your opponent's defense. So it was 100% bait dependent. So you had the Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, and then a very bait dependent second move. Now it has Brutal Swing. And again, Brutal Swing, it's non-stab on this one, but Brutal Swing got buffed. So it's just lower energy. So it's only 35 energy. So now you have an even quicker move than Sand Tomb that actually does some damage. Um, so having that move provides you just something that actually like chips for lower. That being said, what did I say about cofagrigus? The same thing. If you run Brutal Swing and you run Sand Tomb as Shadow Ball, you have nothing to throw at Darks. So it is very still limiting. And then again, the ground weakness picks up the double weakness. But it is ranked higher, I think, because it has Brutal Swing and because um, there are more ghosts in the meta. And yes, you take Super Effective from ghosts, but you are also doing more Super Effective. You do Super Effective against ghosts, so there's kind of an offset there. So yes, these are definitely Pokemon that I think are both like have a lot more play in limited meta, stuff like that. Okay, Cubone, if you've missed the start of the season, Cubone got super buffed with a Mud Slap buff and a Bone Club buff. And now Kanto Marowak, which was absolutely irrelevant for the longest time, is now ranked 14 and 31, Shadow non-Shadow in the Great League. I if you watch my video on the Shadow Marowak, I loved it. I think that the stab, same type of attack bonus, plus the shadow boosted buffed mud slaps really, as long as they don't resist that move, like if it's a flyer, you do have rock slide for coverage for flyers, but if they resist that move, you're still in trouble. But if it's neutral on your opponent, you are so comfortable taking it to like the two shields and just out slapping and out bow clubbing them because that combo really adds up. So that's the shadow. That's why the non-shadow is ranked a little lower in my opinion, just because the true power of this thing is just going mud slap, bone club, um, and just like out damaging your Pokemon with those moves. So unfortunately, it does not look like the Marowak Shadow Marowak is available, but um, you can test Marowak in itself because it's still a good combo there. I just think that the Shadow is probably better. Zigzagoon. Um, so Le Linoon, yeah, 324. Linoon is sometimes used as like a spicy Pokemon, uh, but 324. It's not nothing we're really gonna cover here. Obstagoon's an interesting one though. So Obstagoon, um, again, kind of broke onto the scene as a very unique, not a unique typing because there's also Raticate's typing, but a normal dark Pokemon. Again, stat product pretty decent, somewhat lower attack, good defensive stamina. It can take some moves, um, and it just had counter, right? Any Pokemon that had counter automatically was at an advantage, and then it had Cross Chop, which is just a quick fighting move, and then Night Slash, which can boost your attack. So with that, with its unique typing, dark and normal, double weak to fighting, so you always have to cover your fighting weakness. But then like triple resist Ghost, double resist Psychic against thing where it's dark. So it's one of those Pokemon that like with a decent stat product, with a counter user, it always had play. It had way more play in the Ultra League, right? Because your Ultra League had Giratinas, which you would, like I said, if you go down to the Ghost here, Ghost being triple resisted. So it had a lot of play in the Ultra League being able to resist the Ghost, and there was a lot of, not a lot of steals, but there were some steals which you hit super effective with counter. But counter got nerfed. So not as useful anymore. It would need, I don't think they're a rebuff counter after what they just did. It'd be crazy to just rebuff counter one season later. But it probably needs another fast move to be relevant again. Some people said we're using it in the limited meta we just had. But yeah, it's definitely much, much worse. Um, and then Bastiodon. So Bastiodon is always a top meta. Um, Again, this is just truly an XL bulky Pokemon. 81 attack, 246 defense, 138 stamina, 2700 overall. There's nothing unique about this Pokemon. It's a fast move damage Pokemon, 4.4 damage per turn on the Smackdown. You're just out smackdowning your opponent, and you're surviving a ton with that insane defense, taking the charge moves. But when you run Smackdown, Stone Edge, Flamethrower, whenever you got up against like a Mud Boy or something, you were just screwed. They would kill you and come out with like 100 energy. So there's not much to talk about. It's a good Pokemon. Yeah, like get it. It is limited in how it plays, but it plays a very specific purpose. So if you know how to play that purpose of just like walling a flyer, um, and just just smack downing something, or using it as like a shield if you know that their ground Pokemon's gone, then you're in a pretty good spot with this Pokemon. So yeah, that's the event. I think I think there's like short, like where do you focus your event? I think for 95% of people, it'll just be focused on doing as many field research tasks as you can and trying to get the shiny. Like realistically, that's how I think most people play. Um, but if you're out there, I would grab a few cubones and a few shieldons um, to deal for some Pokemon. And then again, Zigzagoon may come back, like Obstagoon may come back in the future, but eh, I don't know if you want to risk that. For me, it would be like Cubone, Shieldon, and definitely both Yamask, quite honestly. So that's it. Hope you have a fun event. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.